Nearly 2 years after one of Colorado's largest wildfires, we're getting an idea of what might have sparked the East Troublesome fire in Grand County. We're questioning minds, and so are you. Like, what's the deal with that house on the side of C-470? Marshall checked it out. And whatever happened to the first mascot for the Colorado Avalanche? That one took me down quite the rabbit hole this afternoon. Our most Colorado thing sounds like the worst Colorado thing, depending on your level of fitness. I'm Steve Stager in for Kyle Clark. This is next. The East Troublesome fire, the second largest in Colorado's recorded history, was started by a human. The U.S. Forest Service and Grand County Sheriff's Office say a hunter or a backcountry camper may have caused that fire, and it may have been an accident. East Troublesome burned more than 210 square miles in October and November of 2020. 2 people died. Hundreds of homes were destroyed. Both agencies say that they are looking for a specific person or people involved and that the investigation continues. On National Gun Violence Awareness Day, fair to say that we are aware that gun violence is a problem in this country. President Biden said so last night in a primetime address to the nation, and he said that we need to do something about it.
After Columbine, after Sandy Hook, after Charleston, after Orlando, after Las Vegas, after Parkland, nothing has been done.
The president outlined a long list of gun-related legislation that already exists in Colorado: expanded background checks, red flag law, safe storage, and a high-capacity magazine ban. And the president said if Congress won't reinstate the ban on so-called assault weapons, it should at least raise the age to buy one from 18 to 21. In the nation's 9 deadliest shootings since 2018, 6 of the alleged shooters were 21 or younger. 5 of them, including the suspect in the Boulder King super shooting, used semi-automatic weapons. Forensic psychologist John Nicoletti says this trend, younger suspects in mass shootings, has more than one cause.
Is they're out of school, meaning there's nobody controlling them. So they're free roaming. They can purchase weapons at that age. They're into the internet, and there's some neurological studies showing that, not everything's developed inside the brain.
We asked him what he thought about raising the age limit on assault weapons. Nicoletti said it would likely save lives, but it wouldn't solve the root issue of someone wanting to hurt others. The Western Conservative Summit kicked off today in Denver, in Aurora, at the Gaylord Rockies Resort and Convention Center. It's a weekend full of speakers and workshops, but in this afternoon's candidate forum, the crowd got to hear from far-right conservative State Representative Ron Hanks. He's running for U.S. Senate, and after he gave an opening statement, former DA George Brockler asked him questions, including about gun laws in Colorado and around the country.
I would not infringe on our Second Amendment rights with the crime rate going up as it is, with the other issues, the police being disempowered. We have to maintain our Second Amendment rights, but we have to have secure schools as well. And so I would put money and energy towards securing our schools.
Republican Joe O'Dea is running for U.S. Senate, too. He got the chance to say his piece next. When asked about gun laws in Colorado, he said the answer is more good guys with guns, and said that he would support arming teachers.
We have hundreds of laws on the books about guns, but you can't legislate against evil. What we need to do is put more cops back in our classroom. We need to have them there where they can protect our students. We protect our money. We protect our airports. Let's protect our students. I really like what Laura Carno's working on, the FASTER bill, or FASTER concept, where, people that want to concealed carry, teachers that want, can go through certain trainings so that they can arm themselves in the schools. And I think we should do that. That's a fiscally responsible way to respond to this. Make sure that they're armed. And so I would support that.
It's worth mentioning both candidates, Hanks and O'Dea, have been invited to interview with us here on Next. Both candidates have declined to answer our questions before ballots go out. A reminder that you can watch those full interviews that we have done anytime on the Next YouTube page. There's a whole Election 2022 playlist for you to check out. Colorado's primary election, a little more than 3 weeks away on Tuesday, June 28th. Ballots go out next week. All counties are required to do a logic and accuracy test of their equipment before the primary. Marshall and Denver County showed us how that process works earlier this week. You can also see that story on 9news.com and on the Next YouTube page. Well, when you're stuck in traffic, what do you look at? A next viewer reached out to us about an eyesore she sees west of C-470 near Morrison. It's a stretch of highway that sees enough drivers every day to fill Mile High. So what's the deal with the boarded-up home owned by Jefferson County that overlooks C-470 and part of Red Rocks? Marshall Zellinger went to go check it out.
When traffic is flowing on C-470, you might miss what plenty of drivers see when rush hour hits.
In the morning and afternoon commutes, it slows down and maybe people are looking from side to side and notice that the building's there.
People like Jennifer, who emailed Next wanting to know about a boarded-up home west of C-470 near Morrison Road that Jefferson County bought for $585,000 in 2020.
This was a land acquisition that had a small house on it. What we did was we purchased this property with the intent of now having contiguous land that we could ultimately develop for the people of the county and those who want to come and visit.
Matt Robbins from Jefferson County Open Space challenges you to abandon your traditional thoughts on what you think is an abandoned home.
When people see that some of the windows are boarded up, it's to keep the critters out. We have rangers and staff that visit it regularly to make sure that it's actually in good standing.
Jeffco bought the property, not just the home. 6.3 acres surrounded by and now part of Mount Glennon Park.
Because this house has some infrastructure, including a roadway and utilities at the location, it could make for an ideal trailhead at one point.
But the don't call it an abandoned home will likely be preserved for a while, just like the land where it sits.
We're doing an evaluation of all of the land. That includes some of the paleontology that we know is there. We know there are dinosaur tracks and other things along that hogback. We need to do an evaluation of that.
Not to mention the county has other parks and open space to maintain before creating new ones.
Repairing those kiosks and restrooms and trailheads that are already out there that need some support. I don't have a timeline for when we're going to get this done, but it is on our radar and it is a priority.
You know, in this housing market, they could just flip it for twice as much. Robbins points out that the money that paid for the property is from a 0.5% sales tax specifically for open space. It's not just your general property tax dollars or anything like that. And that sales tax specifically for open space has existed for 50 years now.
So there's that house, but then there's another house nearby that a lot of people wonder about.
Right. If you go up Soda Lakes, there's a house that you hit first before that road closure, and they're not worried about that property because it's just the property, the home itself. And you saw on the map, like the 6.3 acres went into the hogback, and that's what they were interested in when the property was for sale. It's like it's surrounded by open space, whereas the other home isn't necessarily, and you could have a complete trail system now that they have that second property. And when it happens, who knows? Jennifer, you might have to email us in like 5 years and say what's going on.
A lot of cool open space in Jeffco. Marshall Zellinger, thank you. Appreciate it. Well, it's a sign that sometimes stop means go and sometimes stop means stop. Your best guess, I guess. We got an email from Colorado State Patrol this week clarifying the changes to bike laws this spring. It's clear if you're paying attention. Stop means yield, but also a red light means stop. If you use the transitive property of equality that we all learned in elementary school, stop would mean stop then, right? That's not the case here, so let me clear this all up for you. The new law allows cyclists the ability to treat a stop sign as a yield sign if they have the right-of-way and traffic is clear. And it lets cyclists treat a red light as a stop sign, meaning that they should stop, and then if traffic is clear, they can proceed. It doesn't give them carte blanche to disregard traffic signals. This is a whole heck of a lot safer for cyclists because it gives them the chance to establish a place for themselves in the road ahead of traffic instead of trying to negotiate that on the fly as cars are passing by. If you're a driver and you're angry about that, I'll just ask you, how's it disadvantaging you?
It's easy to feel powerless to help families who are struggling with the current baby formula shortage. There is something we can do to help. Your Word of Thanks campaign this week has raised nearly $30,000 for Mother's Milk Bank. They're in a position to help in a couple of ways. So our donations will cover the cost of donated milk that gets screened and tested and goes out to low-income families. We're also going to fund outreach to convince more willing and able mothers in Colorado to donate surplus milk. And that nonprofit also has an emergency assistance fund for the families of newborns. They help them afford things like cribs, car seats, even formula. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 and I'll send you the link to join me in donating to Mother's Milk Bank. As we see the headlines about families struggling to find baby formula, we'll at least know that together we did something to help.
may be my last chance to see her.
A woman is making the trip to the other side of the world to say goodbye to her mom. Her travel complicated by a war zone.
So even the fact there is a war going on in Ukraine is not going to stop me.
The story of a daughter's love for her mother. Next. We've heard stories about families escaping the war in Ukraine, but this is one about a daughter here in Colorado who is desperate to travel to a war zone. She wants to reunite with mom before it's too late. Here's Noel Brennan.
A house becomes a home after family leaves its mark.
The paintings, the one on the left is my daughter's.
Littleton is a second home
That's how I see it.
to Olga Funk.
A unique touch.
18 years ago, she left Ukraine behind
Kiev. I'm from Kiev.
and said goodbye to her mom.
This is a photo of me and my mom. We were pretty close when I used to live in Kiev, and it took us a little while to get back on track with our relationship, but yes, I love my mom for sure.
There have been occasional visits, but when war broke out, they kept in constant
Of course,
contact.
it's like at least several times a day.
Checking in last week, Olga learned her mom, Vera, was in the hospital.
Ken and my mom, they found a very big tumor. They don't know for how long she's going to last.
A daughter didn't take long to make a decision.
To go back to see my mom.
It'll take 2 days, 2 planes, and 2 trains to reach Vera in a war zone.
It may be my last chance to see her. So even the fact there is a war going on in Ukraine is not going to stop me from going back to Kiev.
Getting there may be easier than getting out.
If something goes sideways, I don't know how I'm going to be helped.
The trip and reunion are planned for next week.
It's going to be very emotional for me, for sure. But I just hope that she will be able to feel that I'm right there, right next to her.
Even a hospital can feel like home if a daughter has her mom.
It's my family, and my family member is in trouble or has any problems, we're there for each other.
Noel Brennan, 9 News.
Olga starts her journey to Ukraine next Wednesday. She plans to check in with the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv so they know she's there.
It's been a pretty active afternoon across the eastern plains. Strong to severe thunderstorms firing up. I want to zoom in because we have a lot going on. Look at how many lightning strikes just within about the past 15-20 minutes time. More than 780 just in this region across far eastern Colorado. We do have a couple of tornado warnings that will continue until 6:45. Bent, Kiowa, Prowers, and Cheyenne counties. This is just radar indicated, but we have seen golf ball size hail, 70, 80 mile per hour damaging wind gusts too. Another line of storms just crossing to the south and to the east of I-76. Severe thunderstorm warnings will continue as those cells march off to the south and to the east. Pretty quiet here in the Denver area, with the exception of a few isolated showers just beginning to roll off the foothills in northern Colorado. These thunderstorms will continue to push off to the east into Kansas as well as parts of Nebraska late tonight. By about 11 p.m., most of the severe weather is gone. Tomorrow morning, you wake up to some sunshine. It will be a somewhat drier day. Storms few and far between and nothing severe. Also a bit of good news. Temperatures are going to be warming back into the mid to upper 80s for some spots close to 90 like Lamar and Pueblo, with 60s and 70s up in the mountains. We'll stay in the lower 80s as we look ahead toward early next week, with a good chance of storms finally start to dry out by next Thursday and Friday.
Whatever happened to Howler, the Avs' former mascot? I've been a fan for years, and I never knew this story. Chances are you didn't either. I talked to the fan who ended his career. We'll have her story next. It's a Friday. What's your good news? We ask that question of Coloradans pretty regularly around here, and this week we decided to take it to a pretty bad news place in hopes that you'd prove us wrong. Yep, we asked on social media. It's the beginning of Pride Month, says James. Pat says, we got a lot of rain this week. That's a good thing. Areli is showing off their new puppy, who is the face of good news. Thank you so much for sharing. You can always email your good news to us to next@9news.com or tweet it at us with the hashtag #HeyNext. My good news, surprise, surprise, that the Avalanche won last night. They dominated, really. They now have a 2-0 Western Conference Finals lead against the Edmonton Oilers. The new attention on the Avalanche led a next viewer to ask us to investigate something. Tyler asked, whatever happened to Howler, the original mascot of the Avalanche? So I went down a rabbit hole researching this afternoon. Buckle up.
Standing more than 7 feet tall, with size 27 feet, is Howler, Colorado's friendliest Bigfoot.
He burst onto the scene when the Avalanche came here from Quebec City in 1995. And he's the reason those classic Avalanche jerseys you see have the footprint on them. But Howler just kind of disappeared for nearly a decade until Bernie arrived in 2009.
Bernie is the Avs' first mascot since Howler was fired following the 2001 season. Howler was an abominable snowman who got canned after assaulting a fan.
Details are scarce about what happened. Only an AP story detailing a March 1999 incident at McNichols Arena when the Avalanche played the Blackhawks. Howler and a fan named Linda cited after getting into a scuffle. Well, I called Linda today. She couldn't do a formal interview with me, but she tells me that she was wearing her boyfriend's Blackhawks jersey. She went outside for a smoke break between periods. Linda says Howler was going around bonking fans on the head with rolled up posters. He bonked Linda. Linda pushed him. Howler pushed back. And before long, the pair was in a scuffle. Linda says security broke the fight up, put both of them in separate rooms while police took statements. In that AP article, Linda's dad says Howler kicked her in the stomach and that she was treated at Rose Medical Center for her injuries. The trail goes quiet about Howler after that. At the time, the Avs said, quote, "My understanding is that there was, parentheses, an incident, end parentheses." That's about it. A lot of fans say he seemed to just disappear, and the Avs were mascotless until 2009. Linda, who now lives in Florida, told me today, quote, "I guess I was the end of Howler." I want to know more. DMs are open. A woman went for a hike, then did it over and over and over again until she set a record. Most Colorado thing we've seen today, plus your feedback is next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a woman who liked to hike so much she did it again and again and again. 19 times up and down the Manitou Incline. Andrea from Golden set the record this week for most laps at the incline in 24 hours. It's just a mile up. Each trip is nearly 2,800 steps. So that's more than 52,000 steps in all. And she did it all on a foot that was broken in April, said that this was her comeback.
This whole incline in 24 hours is real mental. And so I knew that if my fitness was there enough where I could go on like a 7-mile run or do Morrison in 38 minutes, that I was fit enough and I could do it. It really is just kind of trying to stay positive and keep going. You don't want to have regrets. No, I could have done that last lap. I should have done it. So it's just, you kind of have to put this wall up and you just have to go because you can do it. You just have to, your mind just has to be there.
Andrea will now be added to the Incline Records Best of the Best list for not one but two categories. She's now the woman who's done the most laps done in 24 hours and the fastest inclination. Finished with your feedback now. Colt said, "Hey, Steve, would you like to hike the Manitou Incline?" I have hiked it, Colt. The real question is, would I hike it again? And I'll leave that there. Janelle says, "You're looking pretty handsome tonight. I'm getting a haircut tomorrow." It always looks best before a haircut.